Welcome back, fantasy and game community. I'm Pierre, he's Chris. We're here today to talk about some wide receivers we absolutely hate in fantasy football. And keep in mind, we have nothing against these guys, right? Good players, you know what? Maybe make solid additions to your team, but not ours. It's not that we hate the players, we just hate the draft costs, and there's some warning signals that we cannot ignore, so we're just not going to have a lot of them. So speaking of, Chris, who's one wide receiver you want no part of in 2022?
Sadly, I think I've wanted no part of this guy maybe ever since his sophomore year, and that is DJ Moore. And like you said, it's not DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is a good wide receiver. But DJ Moore's situation never is good. Every year, he's stuck with terrible QB play. And the crazy thing is, every year, it's like drafters do not care. If you watched our wide receivers we love video, I talked about how Mike Evans is a third-round pick every single year, no matter how good he is. Well, it seems like DJ Moore is a third-round pick every single year, no matter how bad he is. And by bad, I mean fantasy bad, not real-life bad. And look, he got off to that great start last year, and everybody thought for 3 or 4 games that Sam Darnold was the answer. But when things averaged out over the course of the season, we now know Sam Darnold is not the answer. But he's probably going to be the quarterback again. And if he's not the quarterback again, what are we looking at? Kenny Pickett, who's going to be a rookie and only going to be 1 year younger than Sam Darnold? He's not really an NFL quarterback. None of the quarterbacks in this draft class are ready to step in and be a leader, an NFL quarterback from day one. So unfortunately, they didn't land Deshaun Watson. They didn't land Russell Wilson. They didn't land any of these, big-time QBs that were on the move. He's going to be stuck with either Sam Darnold, Kenny Pickett, or who knows who at quarterback, which once again is going to be terrible for his fantasy value. You don't need to draft DJ Moore, especially where he's going. There's lots of other good players in that range. Just pass on them and let somebody deal with him this year.
Yeah, honestly, this whole Panthers offense, outside of CMC, and even then, going number 2 or 3, it might be hard to pull the trigger because this is a team that kind of reeks of desperation. They need a quarterback, but they're either going to force it into a guy that they don't really love, that nobody really loves, like you said, like a Pickett or somebody, or it's just going to be Sam Darnold. So, yeah, Moore's a great, talented player, just he's still in the Panthers. Now, this guy is no longer with my team, the Dolphins, as you know, a lifelong Dolphin fan. So this is not personal. Keep in mind, it's just fantasy. So Davante Parker, of course, was moved as soon as Tyreek Hill came to Miami. That means that Parker, who was already rumored to be on the trade block, became totally expendable, and he went to, not the best situation. That would be the New England Patriots. Look, if he'd gone to the Eagles or somewhere like that, maybe there was some hope for him. But for the first time in I don't know how long, I can say, going from the Dolphins to the Patriots is a downgrade in situation. Because Mac Jones, like whatever you think of him, doesn't matter. Let's just say he's not going to be quite the type of quarterback who's going to support any high-end receivers for fantasy. And this is a team that just wants to run the ball. So Davante Parker, maybe he actually gets more of a target share, but it doesn't matter. He's not going to get high target total. Not going to do a lot with him. This is a guy that, I just never have loved from a fantasy perspective because he's just never been on the field for a full season, always battled through injuries, and he's a guy who hasn't quite always fought to stay on the field. Some concerns that maybe the toughness wasn't there, the focus wasn't there. There's a lot of things that held him back from fulfilling his potential. And now that he's going to probably one of the least pass-friendly offenses in the league, it's safe to say he doesn't even warrant being drafted anymore. So not that I drafted him ever in the past, but I'm definitely going to just completely ignore him, even if you call him the wide receiver 1 for New England. All right, Chris, let's keep going. Who else do you not love so much?
Well, this wide receiver, I guess, did get a QB upgrade, and that's Terry McLaurin, but I'm not loving it at all. I don't even know if it's an upgrade. And sure, Carson Wentz, who is now his QB, is probably better than Taylor Heineke, but he's still really bad, right? He was really bad last year in Indianapolis. He was so bad last year in Indianapolis that they could not wait to get rid of this guy. This is a quarterback who I feel like people look at what he did for a 10, 11 game stretch as a rookie and think that's the Carson Wentz that they're getting. But he hasn't been that guy ever since. And I don't think he's the type that's going to support a high-end wide receiver. And you could talk about Michael Pittman last year and say, look, Michael Pittman had some really nice games, and he did. But he also had some really horrible games, and it felt like there was a lot of meat left on the bone for Michael Pittman because Carson Wentz missed them repeatedly, on big plays and things of the like. So I think just like what we saw last year with Terry McLaurin, where he can have those, huge monster weeks, but then most of the time he's having those huge letdown weeks, I think we're going to have more of the same this year. Yes, he'll have his moments because he's a good player and he's pretty much the only offensive weapon, at least the only downfield weapon in that offense. But Carson Wentz is not enough of an upgrade to make Terry McLaurin an every week, must start type wide receiver. But people are going to talk themselves into it and say it can't be worse than Taylor Heineke, but it can, or it can be at least as bad, which I think it will. I think we're going to get the same Terry McLaurin we got last year. So if you like that headache, if you like that roller coaster, go for it. Draft him. Me, I'm passing on my boy Terry McLaurin this year, as much as it pains me.
And I know that's hard for you. Being a Washington fan, almost as hard as saying that Carson Wentz is your quarterback. Maybe is Ryan Fitzpatrick still in the league? Maybe. Now, here's a guy that, it's not a bad situation in terms of the quarterback play. It's really just, again, not a pass-friendly offense. And we're talking about a guy coming off ACL injury. I don't know where Robert Woods is going to get drafted, come draft season. But somebody will take him. Somebody will bet on, the old Robert Woods. And it's just not worth it. So I already mentioned coming off injury. And it wasn't a week one early season injury. It was mid-season. So we don't know what his recovery will be like. Remember, this is also a guy that is now past the age of 30, which for a lot of us, that seems like a long time ago. But for an NFL player, especially a receiver who depends on speed and quickness, it's a little harder to recover. And let's not forget, receivers coming off their first season from an ACL injury, they might be out there playing, but they're not going to be 100% in terms of effectiveness. We've seen this over and over, and this is why a guy like Chris Godwin, I'm not mentioning specifically on this video because I want to see what happens more this offseason, but I'm probably not drafting him either, but that's a different story. So again, Robert Woods, he got by because of his effectiveness in that Rams offense, and now he's going to the Titans, which is, again, a team that, you see what has happened to any receiver besides A.J. Brown in that offense. It's just not happening. Okay, it's a run-first scheme. Derrick Henry is going to be the focal point. Tannehill is fine. He'll get him the ball, but what is he going to do with those yardage? I see Robert Woods being a guy who might get you 50 yards in a game, might score, 4 or 5 touchdowns. Okay for real life, kind of worthless in fantasy. So even if he's ready to go week one, Robert Woods is ready, he's in the starting lineup, I don't care. I'm not drafting him. All right, let's go with one more pick, another wide receiver you are a little less than fond of.
Well, another receiver who got a QB upgrade, and that's Chase Claypool in Pittsburgh, who instead of having Big Ben and his dead arm is going to have Mitch Trubisky and his never strong arm, I guess. And, we saw this last year. This was a big issue for Chase Claypool last year was Big Ben could not get him the ball down the field on those deep throws. Even when Chase Claypool was open, it was underthrown or just not really there where he could catch the ball. I don't see how that changes with Mitch Trubisky. Trubisky is not that kind of quarterback. Look at Mitch Trubisky's history. His yards per attempt is very low. His ADOT is very low. Mitch Trubisky will be very good for Najee Harris. Mitch Trubisky will probably be very good for Pat Freiermuth. He'll probably be okay for Deontay Johnson. But he's going to be a terrible quarterback for Chase Claypool. Kind of like Terry McLaurin last year, we're going to see the same Chase Claypool this year that we saw last year. A frustrating Chase Claypool who's not hitting those big plays, not getting the big target share, and just kind of out there running wind sprints all game and doing very little for fantasy. So again, this is another guy who I think actually is talented. He's young, but he's in the completely wrong situation for his skill set with the completely wrong quarterback. So I'm avoiding them 100% this season.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen it with the Steelers. Some people are just assuming that offense will just chug along as it has, and that Trubisky's an upgrade in some respects in mobility. Yeah, for sure, but I don't see this pass offense necessarily getting a lot better. So I agree. Claypool and Deontay are, to me, going to be overvalued still. All right, so my pick here, guy, look, I promise I don't actually hate it. I know I've mentioned this over and over. If you watched us last season, a lot of times I said, don't get too carried away by Hunter Renfrow. But you did, and now he's still being drafted as, a wide receiver 3. Look, he had that amazing stretch where he just blew up. But again, that was a 3-week outburst. And don't forget, that was with Darren Waller being hurt. I don't see that being sustained now, especially Davante Adams in the fold. Okay, that knocks him down quite a peg. He's not the number 1 receiver there anymore. Darren Waller actually plays a full season. He should get more targets. Okay, so you have Renfrow left there, as the number 3 option at best. So, I do think that Renfrow has been overvalued already, even before the Davante Adams trade, because again, people look at his target share, but a lot of that came in a very small sample size when, again, it was because of opportunity, not necessarily standout talent. So, not knocking the guy, he's got great hands, he knows how to get open, but again, the target share is not going to be there this year. So, you know what? He's an okay option, but he really doesn't belong in starting lineups in fantasy. He, to me, is kind of just a bye-week fill-in. And that's a guy you should be drafting maybe at the end of drafts. He's going to go a lot higher, so I'm probably not going to have him anywhere. All right, so those are some of the wide receivers that we do not love for fantasy football heading into 2022. A lot's going to change in the NFL draft. By the way, join us. We're going to be streaming on the day of the NFL draft. We're going to be talking about fantasy football all offseason long. Join our Discord. Information is in the description below. All right, thanks for joining us.